Bob Woodward, why did you pick Robert Costa? You could have picked anybody in politics. Why did you pick young Costa?
Because young Costa's the best reporter I've ever seen, and his work ethic makes mine look weak. He just threw himself into this, years working at the Post. He understands the Republican Party, understands Washington like no one. He taught me a great deal, and it was, I was saying to somebody, said, well, who did most of the work? And I said, actually, we each did 60%. It's the kind of partnership where everyone overperforms, and I think overperformance for him is just a natural state.
Well, congratulations on the book. And folks, again, this is Woodward and Costa, and Bob Woodward with the courage at 78 to say, I'm going to go out and find somebody to do this with me. Robert Costa, the immediacy of the book is stunning. You've done loads of interviews on the look back. I don't want to do that. I want to talk about the future. And Robert Costa, you end your book by saying the peril remains. What do you mean by that?
Well, I couldn't have a better reporting partner in Bob Woodward. He has taught me so much. And to that question about peril remains, that's a theme that runs throughout the book. And it's built it's not an opinion, it's based on reporting. And that's the Woodward method. Tell the story of American politics, American democracy through scenes. And you see at the end of our book, President Trump's out there on the political campaign trail. He has a warlike cadence in some of these speeches saying we will never surrender, never give in when it comes to conceding the 2020 election. He's demanding a comeback.
You know, Robert Costa, I'm going to look at what we see with Greg Grandin in The Great American Myth, looking at Jacksonian history and how it folds over to the GOP. Robert Costa, what kind of Republican Party do you perceive in 2024?
A Republican Party riven by divisions. You see in our book, someone like Leader McConnell, the Senate Minority Leader, wants to move on, but so many people inside the GOP on Capitol Hill and beyond believe President Trump still has political capital. And so his decision on 2024 will really dominate where this party goes at this point. But there's competition. Vice President Pence, a complicated political figure. As our book shows, he may want to have his own say, his own bid, and there are other stars out there. But President Trump, he remains the political force inside the GOP.
There's a question right now, Bob Woodward, of what the current administration is facing in terms of getting a Washington back to a semblance of what is considered or was considered normal. Considering all of your coverage back in the Nixonian days, how dysfunctional is today's government based on some of the changes and the upheavals that we've seen over the past number of years?
Well, that's an important question. I mean, it continues. Our point here is that Trump triggered a national security crisis that we didn't know about, was a secret during the transition from Trump to Biden. And as Costa says, look, everything is peril. And if we look at Biden right now, he's got immense problems with Afghanistan, with the virus, and he's trying to work out some sort of legislation to get his program through, and he's running into some obstacles in his own party, in the Democratic Party. He's supposed to be the leader and say, okay, everyone do this, but that's not the way Washington works, and maybe it's inevitable that people are going to be outliers. People, the Senator Manchin, Senator Sesma, that they are going to just say, we're not going to march to somebody else's vision. We've got our own.
Which really raises a question about this new dynamic, this new increasing frustration about a dysfunctional Washington and how you go about handling it. And Bob, I just want to know if you think if there's any precedent in terms of a group just saying, we are not going to work with the establishment, period, full stop, unless we get everything we want, which seems to be an increasing fringe on both sides of the aisle, both Democrats and Republicans.
Well, there are precedents. President Clinton had a hard time getting his plan through. It was a squeaker until the end. So we are going to see. But the debate in Washington, as you well know, always one of them is about taxing and spending. How much spending? How much taxing? And Biden has gone for the everything. $3.5 trillion is a big spending package, and we're going to see. And if you talk to people, I mean, Costa knows this better than anyone. There's a lot of uncertainty out there, and there is a lot of peril, if I may use that phrase, about where this goes.
Right.
Does the Democratic Party come apart?
On Bloomberg Radio, on Bloomberg Television Worldwide, we welcome you. Robert Costa and Bob Woodward with us in effort of Peril. Can't say enough about it. Once again, after 14 bestsellers, Bob Woodward on deep background, as they say. Robert Costa, page 201 of Peril, to me is everything about the future of the GOP. Mike Lee of Utah, born in Arizona, wants to sit at Barry Goldwater's desk. There was a time of peril in 1964. I lived it as a kid. This peril here, how do you perceive it worked out across both parties?
The Mike Lee example, the senator from Utah, is such a prism into the GOP right now. He was presented with the Eastman memo. Conservative lawyer John Eastman presents this memo to Senator Lee based on our reporting about throwing out some electors on January 6th, about searching for alternate electors that may be out there in the states. And Lee, long story short, finds this is not the case. He does a lot of reporting on his own to probe the Eastman memo, and he finds there's no such thing as alternate electors out there. But this memo and John Eastman, they were in the Oval Office, our book shows, on January 4th, 2 days before the insurrection. This was not just some memo or some fantasy. This was something that was actively going on. Pay attention, Woodward always tells me, to the action. What are people doing and saying?
I look, Robert Costa, and I can go to your time at Cambridge, where I believe you efforted the fractious career of Winston Churchill. Let's swing to the Democrats right now and look at their peril. I would suggest, Robert Costa, that these Democrats are remembered only by Bob Woodward in Washington, back pre-Obama, back pre-Clinton. Is this fractious Democratic Party now like way back, or is it something new?
There's a scene in the book where President Biden looks up at a portrait of FDR, and he says, this is a time for that kind of transformational change. What you really see in the Democratic Party in our reporting is while Biden won the presidency, Bernie Sanders and his progressive movement have won power. They are in alignment with Biden. Sanders made the decision in April and May of 2020 to work with Biden rather than against him. And you see Biden moving to the left on his $1.9 trillion rescue plan, which we detail in the book, and even now on this massive plan he's proposing, and that's currently on the rocks on Capitol Hill. Biden's not moving towards the center and trying to be the guy cutting a deal with Mitch McConnell. And that dynamic continues. He wants to have a progressive legacy, even though he's known as moderate Joe Biden from Delaware.
Bob, just taking a step back, when you look at all the reporting that you did for Peril, what's your big takeaway in the new nature of the United States democracy in this new, very fractious era?
Well, that it's being tested and stretched by both parties. And I remember talking with President Trump when he was in office in 2019, going into the Oval Office and saying that the old order in both parties, Republican and Democratic, is changing, is evaporating, and he said yes. And I said, it looks like you seized history's clock in 2016. And he just jumped in his chair behind the Resolute desk saying, yes, I'll do it again, talking about 2020 coming up. And of course, he didn't. He lost. But the big Trump theme now is the election was stolen. We dug into this as much as you can, and we found these memos and this documentation that the biggest Trump supporters realized there was no stolen election. What is Trump running on? Essentially, his campaign is, well, they stole it in 2020, though there's no evidence, and somehow I can run in 2024 and get it back. The average voter sits and looks at all of this. What does it mean to them? Who's going to offer a better life and a better program? That should be the issue. Maybe that will surface in all of this.